All right, so back again for this next video on carving. So, all right, so let's take a look. Let's kind of back up a little bit. We decided that was our front view, and we cut that out of a piece of foam, and whoops. And we decided that's going to be our side view, and I've cleaned up the side view a little bit, but you can still see, you know, it's starting to look a little like Christmas, but mostly it's really sort of geometricized, right? So now it's up to us to kind of take it to the next level and make this thing a little more organic. But we've really set ourselves up for some good things. And what I want to do now is I want to identify some landmarks, right? Some areas that I know exist so that as I start carving, I'll have reference points. Because if you just start removing material, try to take material away, you're going to, without doubt, chop something off that you really value, and you're not going to be able to put it back on, and it's going to make you say bad words. So to avoid that, we're going to make some landmarks on this foam. And again, we're going to use a Sharpie. And once we have several of those landmarks, it's really going to help us understand where to carve. So as I look at this, obviously I've already drawn on a couple of those landmarks. I've got a hole here that I'm going to make a piercing, and I've drawn this line which corresponds to this edge, right? So there's a couple of landmarks that I already have. Now let's turn it sideways, and I'm in the process of putting a landmark on here. You can see that this line that I've drawn right down here represents this edge. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that real quick. One trick that carpenters always do when they're making cuts on important pieces of wood, they'll make a measurement and then they'll make a mark on the part while they're thinking about it and while it's still clear in their mind, they'll make marks on the part that they intend to remove. All right, so you can see that I need to remove this material up in here, and you can see that I need to remove this material here. So I've made myself a couple of really good landmarks. And so now I can be kind of brave. I mean, I know where it is that I need to take material from, and I can get my trusty knife out, and I can start removing material, right? And one of the things that you're going to notice that I do if you were to watch me work is you're going to notice that I always orient my maquette. I'm going to call this a maquette from now on. I always orient my maquette in the same direction that I'm holding my piece while I'm carving on it. So I'm carving away that material, which is right here, and you won't be able to see me do it because I'm going to turn it around, but I'm just going to use my knife and I'm just going to carve away. But you will see that I always turn my maquette so it's in the same orientation as my carving, because if I don't, I'll get lost and I'll get out of whack. So I can go in here and remove this material and check my reference to kind of make sure I'm doing it right. And I'll tell you, this foam that you're carving is the world's easiest stuff to carve. It is so incredibly easy. The problem you're going to have, as I've mentioned already, the problem you're going to have, keep the orientation the same, the problem that you're going to have is you're going to be removing material too fast. Keeping the orientation the same. All right, so you can see that I have removed some of that material. I tell you what, I almost feel guilty because this is going so incredibly fast. I can't tell you enough times to slow down, take your time, work slowly, work carefully. If you screw this up, you'll have to start over. All right. So you can see I've removed a pretty good chunk of material. Now, I cut off that little mark that represents that little piercing, so give me a second and I'll put that back in. Again, I'm always orienting the piece to my maquette. You will almost never see me turn my carving that I don't turn my maquette at the same time. You will get lost in space and screw something up if you don't. All right, so I've drawn my hole back in, and so I'm gonna go ahead and do that real fast. Now, I'm gonna do that with a drill bit. You can check one of these out from the shop. Chet's probably got 17,000 of them in there, and you can use this. You don't even have to attach it to a drill. I'm just gonna put it right where it goes, and I'm going to just finger twist this a little bit. And ta-da, I have my piercing, right? So now I can work on the back side and hollow that out a little bit if I want. I'll do this more later, but I'm gonna do this just so you can get the idea. Okay, so I'm off to the races there. Now, on this back side, I have something that's sort of not working out real well, and you'll probably end up having one of these or two of these things on the piece that you're working on too. So that's my side view, and then as I spin it this way to the back side, you'll notice that this is supposed to have curved up this way. Well, when you cut these things out using the templates, you don't always get all the material. Sometimes there's awkward spots left. So all I have to do is draw my landmark in, right? So I'm going to turn this back so where I can see it. I'm going to turn my maquette where I can see it to make sure I don't screw up, which is entirely possible. Okay, so you can see that curved line, right? Where the line follows that up. You can see it in my maquette. Or in my carving, it's following it up too. So I'm going, now that I've drawn that in there, I'm going to quick knock that out real fast, just so I can get closer to my finished version. Again, I'm always going to orient my piece the right way. That doesn't seem right. It's okay, it's okay. Okay, this back side, I need a line back here, right? I'm kind of lost in this area right here. I don't know where I'm at, so I need a line back here. Okay, so now I've got my reference. I've got that line. So now I'm in business. Make sure I know what I'm doing. I screwed up, didn't I? Yep. Damn it. Good thing I'm not getting a grade. Phew, I would hate to fail my own course. I have made a mistake, and I remember when I did it, it was early on. I turned this around and got it backwards. So it's going to have to cause me to make a change. Actually, I did it on purpose so I could show you how to go about making the change. You can see right here is my mistake. I cut this in and I cut this shape and I don't have that right there. So I'm missing this. So now what I'm going to have to do, I suppose I got two options. Really, and it's a pretty decent option too. I could custom cut a piece of foam that would fit back in there and glue that in place. And that would make my life a little better. Another option would be to cut the material out of this and modify my design. I really don't want to do that. I like the way this looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that later, not right now, but later, I'm going to glue some foam into that place where I made a mistake. I've got plenty of scrap. What I'll do to make it fit is I'll get a bigger piece. And I'll take the foam and I'll decide where I need to put it. In this case, it needs to go right in here. It needs to go right in there. So it needs to fit right in there. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to work that back and forth for a minute. And you know what that's going to do? These foam pieces are going to abrade against themselves, and that's going to give me a perfect union where I can glue that together, and I will do that. I will glue that in there and save the day, and I'll be so happy and so proud of myself because I'm so good at fixing things. I used to work for my uncle, old dead Uncle Seamus, and he was a carpenter, and he used to tell me, it's not how good you are that counts, but it's how well you can fix what you mess up. Uncle Seamus was a genius. So you can see now, let's see. This part right in through here, I needed to patch. And so now that's going to be the patch for that. So I'll glue that into place in a little bit, and then I'll be off to the races, and then I can put it back together. All right, so as you can see, now I'm just going to start working. I've got all the major landmarks identified, right? I know where all the major areas are. And I've identified all the major landmarks. And now I'm just going to start trying to duplicate this. And I'm just going to start rounding things off. Here's a mistake people make. This is a point right here where people get conservative and they get afraid to take material away. And what happens is that when they're finished, their piece looks like it's still living in the block, right? It's still got the straight sides and the straight angles. And that's a mistake. You've got to be able to get in there and knock the corners off of this thing, put the angles in, put all the curves in. If you look at this, for example, right here, you see how this wraps around? Well, in my piece a minute ago, it was square, so now I've got to wrap it around by removing this material out here. So these are the kind of cuts now that you don't really have a template for. You don't really have a mark or a landmark for. So now it's just going to be interpretation. And now where you really need to spend looking and making sure that you are holding this piece exactly next to your maquette in the exact proper orientation. And if you'll do that, you'll be able to start removing this material and softening these corners. Soften the corners and make it round. All right, so I'm not going to make you watch me carve the rest of this. I'm going to do that. I'll get it real roughed out, and then I'm going to come back in one final carving video, and I'll show you how to clean the form up with sandpaper. So let me finish this, and I'll be back in a little while.